What classic movie influenced Joaquin Phoenix's take on the Joker? What did he do to his body to prepare for the role? What gift did he receive from the director to get him in the Joker's headspace? We're diving into all of this and more as we take a look at how Joaquin Phoenix transformed into the Joker. So, Joker's had its first few screenings, and the results are highly polarizing. While it certainly has its detractors, it's being hailed by many critics as a masterpiece, and drawing comparisons to Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy.
Well, I don't know. I don't follow political issues that closely, sir. I don't know.
Directed by Hangover director Todd Phillips, Joker is purported to be a darker, more realistic take on the character. It also appears to be self-contained, a refreshing idea in an era where every major studio film is tied to some kind of shared universe.
She with you?
I thought she was with you.
In the film, Joaquin Phoenix plays Arthur Fleck, a struggling stand-up comedian who starts to lose his grip on reality. Many of the rave reviews of the film focus on Phoenix's performance, no surprise given the critical acclaim he has accrued in recent years. With all this buzz around his portrayal of Joker, it's not hard to wonder about Phoenix's preparation. For better or for worse, the character of the Joker has been assigned a lot of power in popular culture.
You can call me Joker.
The psychological toll of playing the character was purportedly a factor in the overdose of Heath Ledger, which may have inspired Jared Leto to embark on a widely mocked publicity campaign where he attempted to prove his dedication. Despite all this, Phoenix has remained pretty low-key about his process, and cagey with details. For most of his career, he has shunned more mainstream films, and unlike most of his contemporaries, he has never even done a comic book movie. In an interview with Collider, he discussed his long journey to appearing in the film, saying, "3 or 4 years ago, I called my agent and said, why don't they want to take one of these characters and just make a lower budget film about it? A character study, and why not take one of the villains?" The project fizzled, and Phoenix forgot about the idea. Years later, he heard about plans for a gritty, standalone film about the Joker, and he enthusiastically signed up. In the same interview, he also discussed being drawn to the project by director Todd Phillips. Phoenix said, "I think he's very impressive, and he seems to have a very interesting understanding of this world and what he's trying to say. It's comforting to think Phoenix would only take on a comic book role if it was of the highest quality and that he was drawn to both Phillips and the script."
All I have are negative thoughts.
As interesting as it would be to see Phoenix in a mainstream blockbuster like Gladiator again, it's also cool to see him reshape a popular character in his own image. So, if Phoenix was drawn to the project by a strong creative vision, how did he prepare for actually playing the role? He did what all great actors do. He lost a dramatic amount of weight. Phoenix lost a staggering 52 pounds. And the impact wasn't just physical. It also started to affect his mental health. He told ET Canada, "As it turns out, that impacts your psychology, and you really start to go mad when you lose that much weight in that amount of time." The Joker is historically a slim, lanky character, but in the trailers, Phoenix appears downright skeletal, something that is new to this version and a far cry from Jared Leto's muscular look. Dramatic weight transformations are now common in Hollywood for committed method actors.
I believe we can make this work.
Robert De Niro, who also appears in Joker, gained 30 pounds in order to portray Al Capone in the gangster film The Untouchables.
Baseball.
Getting into the body of a character could be invaluable for getting into their headspace. A psychologically difficult experience like shedding 52 pounds can help to prepare for playing a psychologically damaged character like the Joker. Since the brunt of Joker seems to be about a man who feels disempowered by society, it also makes sense to have the character be more physically frail than in previous versions. A villain who isn't physically strong is a much more interesting starting point than one who is inherently powerful. But Phoenix's physical dedication didn't end with his weight. A dramatic video captured from the set shows Phoenix performing his own stunts as well, including a painful-looking collision with a taxi. In the video, Phoenix is being chased by 2 detectives. His Joker runs into the street, is hit by a taxi, and rolls over the hood. He falls from the roof and lands on hard concrete. Without missing a beat, still in character, Phoenix jumps up and keeps running. That's a lot of commitment, and this is just one stunt that happened to be visible to the public. Who knows what else Phoenix subjected himself to for the shoot? While actors doing their own stunts has become more common, and Phoenix isn't, say, hanging from an airplane or breaking his own ankle, Tom Cruise style, it's still jarring to see a legitimate A-lister be hit by a car. Looks like Phoenix didn't just take inspiration from Taxi Driver. He thought it would be good to get hit by one too. This may be a stretch, but it's also easy to imagine that being literally beaten down by the world might help get you into the Joker's headspace. Anyone can pretend to have a negative outlook, but getting hit by a car all day at your job would probably give you one. Another big aspect of the character is undeniably the laugh. Obviously, one of the biggest things we associate with the Joker, a laugh can make or break the character. In a panel at the Venice Film Festival, Phoenix discussed the vision he and Phillips shared for the laugh, saying, "Phillips described the laugh as something that's almost painful. It's a part of him that's trying to emerge." He also described the process of deciding on the final laugh and how it was a difficult, awkward process in and of itself. He said, "I practiced alone, but I asked Todd to come over to audition my laugh, because I felt like I had to be able to do it on the spot and in front of somebody else. And it was really uncomfortable because it took me a long time." While being interviewed by Italian magazine Il Venerdì, Phoenix also mentioned a more unusual, specific inspiration. While discussing his research, he had this to say: "I saw videos showing people suffering from pathological laughter, a mental illness that makes mimicry uncontrollable. Pathological laughter is a real condition, though rare, which causes the sufferer to start laughing or crying suddenly and without reason. The influence can be seen in Phoenix's laugh from the trailer, which feels painful and involuntary." Phillips also chimed in to discuss another influence on the character, the classic silent film The Man Who Laughs. This classic romantic melodrama, interestingly enough, was one of the main inspirations for the creation of the Joker in the first place. If you see the film, the title character's resemblance to the Joker is striking. The character in question is named Gwynplaine, who was disfigured as a child and thus bears a permanent and frightening grin. The comic book creators of the Joker don't agree about much of anything, especially in terms of who created what. But they all acknowledge that the process started when artist Bill Finger drew a picture of actor Conrad Veidt in makeup as Gwynplaine. And while the character's influence was mostly visual, the tragedy of someone forced to wear a permanent smile remain in many iterations of the Joker.
And as you can see, I'm a lot happier.
While it may not be easy or obvious to trace Phoenix's performance to one in an expressionist silent film, it is interesting to see how the portrayal of the character has evolved. The difference between a larger-than-life silent film character to a more intimate and subtle performance. They're two opposite ends of the spectrum, which contains every other version of the Joker. Another interesting element of Phoenix's prep also came from Phillips. According to Phoenix, Phillips sent him a notebook to write in to help get in character. "We don't know about you, but we really want to see what's in that diary." It's especially cool to think that a prop so valued by the character was written in by Phoenix himself. Phoenix also discussed his preparations in relation to Arthur's mental health issues. He said this about his choices: "I did identify Arthur as a particular personality, a particular type, but I also wanted the freedom to create something that wasn't identifiable. This is a fictional character. I didn't want a psychiatrist to be able to identify the kind of person that he was." This sounds like a pretty smart approach. You wouldn't want the Joker to come off as a cartoon character with no resemblance to real life, but you also wouldn't want to entirely base him on a real condition. Not only would that probably offend people who had that condition, but it would remove some of the mystery of the character. As was demonstrated in The Dark Knight, part of the power of the Joker is that you never truly understand where he came from, or why he believes the things he believes.
"I'm a dog chasing cars. I wouldn't know what to do with one if I caught it."
That mystery allows you to craft a more personally interesting origin onto him.
"You remind me of my father. I hated my father."
It's good to know that despite this being an origin film, Phoenix and Phillips are keeping the idea intact and not attempting to over-explain the Joker's psychology. Similarly, though Phoenix's methods have been more mysterious and less public than those of previous Jokers, we have faith that he will give a great performance. He has had an incredible run lately, and each of his recent films could further influence his performance. Her casts him as a loner wallowing in self-pity.
Are you in love with anyone else?
Inherent Vice as a goofball who can't keep up with the changing world around him.
Well, I've been busy.
And in You Were Never Really Here, he plays a violent man fed up with what he sees as an immoral society.
I'm just a hired gun.
Phoenix is incredible in each of these roles, and we couldn't be more excited to see him tackle one of pop culture's biggest characters.